Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to IAS Origin again. This is Anubhav Deepani, your faculty at IAS Origin. So, in our last two sessions, we already had started our previous year question paper solution, and we have been basically studying the detailed solution of each and everything. So, today we will be basically continuing that particular scenario. And in our last two sessions, we studied about um, Union Executive and Parliament, and we also studied about the Constitution amendments questions which were asked in the previous year questions of UPSC Prelims examination. And today we are going to study about local self-government or local parliament. Okay, so before starting these are particular questions of local government, first of all, we need to study a bit about local government. That means how the Panchayat and Nagarpalika were being formed in the year 1992. We will just discuss the basics for near about 5 to 7 minutes. And after that, we will basically come to the questions. Okay, so without wasting any time, let us just now come to our particular uh, Panchayat and Nagarpalika scenario. Okay. See, there are basically three tiers of the government right now in the country. The very first tier is basically the central government here. The second tier is the state government here. And the third tier is the local self-government. Okay. It's the local self-government. Now, this local self-government, which we study, is basically divided into two different parts, which is known as Panchayat, and it is also known as municipality. Now, this municipality is also known as Nagarpalika. Now, this Panchayat scenario is there in the urban areas, and this municipality is there in the rural areas. Now, you please understand this point that there were two constitution amendments in the year 1992, which were basically known as 73rd Constitution Amendment 1992 and 74th Constitution Amendment 1992. This 73rd Constitution Amendment 1992, under this 73rd Constitution Amendment 1992, Panchayat was established in the country. And under the 74th Constitution Amendment 1992, municipality was basically established here. Fair enough. Now, when this Panchayat and municipality were established, the three different tiers were also established here. Like, for example, in Panchayat, there were three different levels, which are known as Gram Panchayat, Janpad Panchayat, and Zilla Panchayat. Now, Zilla Panchayat is also known as District Panchayat. Now, in this municipality, it is known as Nagar Panchayat. Then, at the second level, it is known as municipality, which is also known as Nagar Palika. And at the third level, it is known as municipal corporation, which is also known as Nagar Nigam. Fair enough. Now, you please understand when this 1992 amendments were passed and when Panchayat and Nagar Palika were implemented, they were implemented under Article number 243. Both these Panchayat and Nagar Palika were implemented under Article number 243. When this Article number 243 was implemented in the name of Panchayat and Nagar Palika, you need to understand one very important thing here, that this Panchayat and Nagar Palika was not a very new idea of the government, because when it was implemented in the year 1992, PV Narasimha Rao was the prime minister of our country. So this was not an original idea. This particular idea was taken from the directive principle of state policy, that is Article number 40, which actually tells us about Gandhian philosophy, and Panchayati Raj. and Panchayati Raj. Fair enough. Now, what do you mean by DPSP or Directive Principle of State Policy? See, our Constitution Assembly, which was basically elected in the year July-August 1946, this particular Constituent Assembly started making our Indian Constitution from 9th of December 1946. And we implemented this particular Constitution on 26th of January 1950. When our Constitution was implemented, there were many things and there were many policies and schemes and laws which Constituent Assembly wanted to implement. But we did not have that much of resources. We were lacking of the resources, we were lacking of the money. So what our Constituent Assembly decided that we should make a different section in the Constitution from Article number 36 to Article number 51, which will be known as Directive Principle of State Policy, that is DPSP. Okay. Now, in the DPSP, all the guidelines were given by the Constituent Assembly. If you basically look at Article number 36 to Article number 51, there are all the guidelines given by the Constituent Assembly for our future governments. For our future governments in the sense, from the first Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru till today's Prime Minister of Narendra Modi. So the guidelines which were given by the Constituent Assembly, it was said that the future governments, whenever they will be having a good resource, money, everything, they need to implement it, all those guidelines into laws. So if you see this article number 40, which basically tells you about the Panchayati Raj system and Gandhian philosophy, because Mahatma Gandhi had basically told us that if you want to develop India, you have to develop the villages and rural area also. So this article number 40 was implemented under article number 243 through our 73rd and 74th Constitution Amendment 1992. Now, this structure which you see of government, this structure is basically also known as federalism. Okay, this is known as federalism. Why? Because federalism means distribution of power. Now, distribution of power between whom? Distribution of power between the governments. Distribution of power between the governments. Now, before 1992, if you see this, before 1992, central government and state government. Before 1992, central and state government were there. So, federalism was still there, but it was known as weak federalism. But after 1992, when the three-tier governments were there, it was basically known as strong federalism. It is as simple as that. It was basically known as strong federalism. Now, this is the story of local self-government or the tier 3 government or the strong federalism. Now, related to this particular basic chapter, now we would be solving the PYQs of local self-government of last few years. Let's get started with this now. Okay. So, let us come to the very first question. Now, the very first question, which basically you see in 2017, it was asked that local self-government can be best explained in the name of federalism, democratic decentralization, administrative delegation, or direct democracy. It can be basically best explained as democratic decentralization. Why democratic decentralization? To understand this particular concept, you need to understand the difference between centralization and between decentralization. What do you mean by centralization? Centralization means when the power is basically there in the hand of one person only. When the power is there in the hand of one person. So here you can basically write the definition. One person having the power. One person having the power. This is what we know as centralization. And when the power is distributed, power is distributed between different governments, that is central government, state government, and local self-government. This is what we know as decentralization. This is known as decentralization. So this is basically the scenario, everyone. Fair enough. Now, that's why we basically see that democratic decentralization is the correct explanation of this. Now, let us look at the explanation of this particular answer here. Okay. Now, democratic decentralization, this is basically the definition which you can note it down, and it would be very, very helpful for your prelims and as well as mains examination. Now, democratic decentralization is the process of devolving the function and resources from the center to the elected representative at the lower level. See, we see the elected representative in the Lok Sabha also, which is at the highest level. We see elected representative in the state legislative assembly or Vidhan Sabha also, which is at the medium level. Now, when you basically see the elected representative at the lowest level, that is Panchayat and Nagar Palika, that's what we call democratic decentralization, guys. Okay. Now, democratic decentralization, why we are calling it that elected representative at the lowest level? Because the elections are being held in the Panchayat and Nagarpalika level also. Now, if you see here that at Panchayat and Nagarpalika level, direct and indirect election, both types of elections are there. If you go for the Panchayat tier 3 system, that is the Gram Panchayat, Janpad Panchayat or Zilla Panchayat, all the members of Panchayat and all the members of Nagarpalika, they are elected directly. But the chairperson of Panchayat and Nagarpalika, some of them are elected directly, some of them are basically elected indirectly. We are going to discuss in upcoming questions here. Okay. Now let us go to the next question, and next question is going to be very, very important for you here, because this is a kind of a question which you will not find in many of the books also and in many of the content and materials also. This question was basically asked in the year 2016. The question was, with reference to the Gram Nyalay Act, which of the following statement are correct? Now, what do you mean by Gram Nyalay Act? You might have heard about the Supreme Court, you might have heard about the High Court, you might have heard about the District Court or Session Court, which is also known as the Subordinate Court. But under subordinate court, there are also many, many courts, such as family courts, Gram Nyalay Act, etc., etc. So this question is actually about the Gram Nyalay Act. Okay. Now, this Gram Nyalay Act is basically what is Gram Nyalay Act? And in this question, it is being asked that which statement is correct about the Gram Nyalay Act here. Now, please notice that there are two questions in front of you. As per the Act, Gram Nyalay can hear only the civil cases and not the criminal cases. This is basically the very first statement. The second is the Act allows local social activists and mediators as counselors here. So here the thing is, the second statement is correct and the first statement is completely incorrect. That means the answer will be option number B, that is only 2, because the Gram Nyalay can look at the criminal cases also, but the criminal cases not of the highest level, but the criminal cases of at the lower level. Now let us look at the explanation of this particular Gram Nyalay Act, guys. Okay. Now, there is a very detailed discussion and explanation of Gram Nyalay Act. I want you to basically read this very carefully. Okay, if you are watching the live class, you just read it out, and if you later on when you'll be watching the recorded lecture, just pause the video and note down each and everything. It is going to be very, very important for you guys. Okay, now let's go for this now. Now, this Gram Nyalay Act was basically passed in the year 2008. Okay, and it established the Gram Nyalay, or also known as village court, at the grassroots level. Its purpose is to provide access to justice to the citizens at the doorstep. That means if there is any family or any person who is living in the mobile or remote area or in the village or rural area, and that person is not capable enough to go to the High Court or District Court, Session Court or Supreme Court, so that person will be provided justice at his doorstep, because Gram Nyalay or village court will be functioning in his or her village at that point of time only. Okay. Now, the presiding officer, that means the head of the Gram Nyalay, is known as Nyayadhikari. Now, this particular word of Nyayadhikari will be used in English also, and it will be used in Hindi also. That is Nyayadhikari. Okay. And this Nyayadhikari person will be having the same power as the judicial magistrate in the first class. Judicial magistrate in the first class. And this Nyayadhikari person will be appointed only and only by the state government in consultation with the High Court only. He will be appointed by the state government in consultation with the High Court only. And this Gram Nyayalaya have the jurisdiction. Now, what do you mean by jurisdiction? Jurisdiction means at what level, at which level the court is having the jurisdiction. That means Supreme Court has its own jurisdiction, which is also known as original jurisdiction, advisory jurisdiction, appellate jurisdiction, writ jurisdiction. Same goes with the High Court and subordinate court also. So this Gram Nyayalaya has also been basically provided jurisdiction. Now, this whole of the jurisdiction is dependent on the High Court also. Whenever Gram Nyayalaya needs to take a very big decision, Gram Nyayalaya needs to basically take the suggestion or consultation from the High Court also and from the state government also. Okay. Now, this is basically the very important point here, because of which the first statement we basically say that it was wrong, because this Gram Nyayalaya has the jurisdiction over the civil cases also and over the criminal cases also. And now here Gram Nyayalaya basically can solve the dispute also in the first instance, and it allows the appointment of social activists and lawyers as the mediator. So Gram Nyayalaya is not only about those persons who have basically completed their degree of law. I mean, obviously the lawyers or advocates will be there, but the social activists will be also there in the Gram Nyayalaya, because sometimes social activists can basically solve or resolve the small disputes. If you will not basically solve or resolve the small dispute at the grassroots level, it will become a big dispute and it will be basically reached to the High Court level or to the Supreme Court level. And because of that, the burden of the higher courts will also be increased. So it is a very good thing that the disputes are basically being resolved at the lower level. Because of that, money and time will be saved of common people, and higher courts will not be having that much of burden also. That's why it is very, very important here. Okay. Now, I hope you all guys are very, very clear with the Gram Nyayalaya concept. Let us go with the next question now. The next question, which was asked in the year 2016, and it was considered the following statement. There are basically two statements in front of you. Which one is correct? We have to see. The minimum age prescribed for any person to be member of Panchayat is 25 years. No, sir, it is completely incorrect, because the minimum age to contest the elections of Panchayat or Nagar Palika, it is just 21 years. It is just 21 years. Now you look at the second statement. A Panchayat reconstituted after premature dissolution continues only for the remainder period. Yes, that is basically correct. So second statement is correct only. Now, what do you mean by this? Please understand this particular thing. Okay. See, whenever you need to basically contest the election of any of the election, like for example, if you want to contest the election of Lok Sabha, if you want to be the member of Lok Sabha, or if you want to be the member of Vidhan Sabha, the minimum age is 25 years. But if you basically want to become the member of Rajya Sabha or Vidhan Parishad, that is Legislative Council, what is the minimum age? Minimum age is 30 years. Now, if you want to be the president or vice president of this country or governor of any state, the minimum age is again 35. Now, if you want to be the chief minister, if you want to be the prime minister, or if you want to be the council of minister, what is the minimum age? Again, the minimum age is 25. But if you are going for the Panchayat or Nagar Palika, the minimum age is not 25, but the minimum age is 21. Now, what is second statement is saying? Second statement is saying that the tenure of the Panchayat or Nagar Palika is actually 5 years. Fair enough. So whenever the dissolution is happening of the Panchayat or Nagar Palika, it can be basically done in two ways. Whenever the 5 years are completed, after the completion of the term, the dissolution will be basically done. And if you have not basically completed 5 years, and before that, the dissolution can happen. The same process is there in the Lok Sabha also, and the same process is there in the Rajya Sabha also. Now, you please understand this thing that, for example, if there is a tenure or a duration of any panchayat of 5 years, but that panchayat basically was being dissolved in 2 years only, that means the 3 years were still left. So the next panchayat which will be basically working, that will be working only for 3 years, not for 5 years, because then there will be a problem when you will be conducting or organizing the elections for panchayat of whole of the state. This is basically the scenario here, girls. Okay, so I've given you the explanation also here, and if you want to basically read the explanation, this is basically the explanation in front of you, given in the detail. Okay. Now, see here, we basically saw a question of democratic decentralization of 2017. Okay, and now you see the same type of question was there in the 2015, because UPSC it's repeating its questions within the span period of 2 years. Look at the question, it is exactly the same question which we saw in 2017-18. The fundamental object of Panchayati Raj system is people's participation in the development, political accountability, democratic decentralization, and financial mobilization. So here you can see that option number 3 is correct, because we saw the same in 2017 question. So you have to see where 3 is not there. So it is not there in option number B. So option number B will be basically eliminated. Financial mobilization and political accountability is obviously financial mobilization is not the scenario, because the fund is already being distributed by either by the Central Finance Commission or by the State Finance Commission. So here this portion will be also wrong here. Okay, and now you basically come with the correct option of 1 and 3. That means people participation in the development and democratic decentralization is the correct answer. What do you mean by democratic decentralization? That you are basically distributing the power. You are distributing the power to the third tier of the government also. And when the third tier of the government will be there, that means when you will be distributing the power to the panchayat and nagarpalika, that means direct and indirect election will be held there at the grassroots level also. Okay, so when the direct and indirect elections will be held there at the grassroots level also, that means people will be participating in the development process. This is the scenario here. Okay, now if you basically look at the explanation and if you look at the definition also, it is also somewhere very same here. Now please look at the definition and explanation. Now the same definition is here. Democratic decentralization is the process of developing the functions and resources from the center to the elected representative at the lower level. The same explanation, same definition which was there in the 2017-18 question. Now next is it aims to facilitate greater direct participation of citizens in the governance and development. Obviously, whenever there will be direct and indirect election at the grassroots level, people will be casting their vote in the panchayat and nagarpalika election, and when people will be casting their vote in the panchayat and nagarpalika election, they will be playing their role in the development. This is basically the scenario. Now let us come to the next thing, that is participation of people is ensured through the organization of Gram Sabha. Now, Gram Sabha is a very important term which you need to understand. What do you mean by Gram Sabha? Now, suppose that there is a village and the population is near about 5,000 people. Okay, out of 5,000, 3,000 people are having their voter ID and they can basically vote. So, whenever those 3,000 people will be having a meeting with their Gram Panchayat, with the member and chairperson of that particular Gram Panchayat, that particular meeting will be known as Gram Sabha, or the crowd of voter of that particular village will be known as Gram Sabha. Okay, now this Gram Sabha meet can happen anytime, but there are basically 4 dates on which Gram Sabha must be there. It will be there on the 26th of January, Republic Day. It will be there on the 15th of August, Independence Day. It will be there on the on 1st of May, that is the Labor Day, and it will be there on 2nd of October, that is Mahatma Gandhi Jayanti. Okay, but besides that, Gram Sabha can be organized as many as times, like once in a month, twice in a month, thrice in a month, weekly, daily, whatever the scenario is. So this is what we call as Gram Sabha. And as I have already told you in that particular introduction, that 73rd and 74th Constitution Amendment 1992 was there, which established the Panchayat and Nagarpalika as the third tier level. Okay, now let us go to the next question now. Let me just see the next important question, which I can basically find for you here. Okay, this is one question. This is the question which was basically being asked in the year 2012. It was asked that in the areas covered under the Panchayat or extension to the Scheduled Areas Act 1996, what is the role or power of Gram Sabha? Now, if you need to understand this Panchayat, if you need to understand this particular question, first of all, you need to understand what is PESA Act. PESA, Panchayat Extension to the Scheduled Area Act of 1996. PESA Act. Now, please understand PESA Act. See, there are basically tribal and scheduled areas in our country. Okay, there are tribals and scheduled areas in our country, and those scheduled and tribal areas are basically divided into fifth and sixth schedule of our constitution. Now, in fifth and sixth schedule of our constitution, fifth and sixth schedule of our constitution are basically those areas where there is a majority of the tribal population. Now, if the state government or if the central government will forcefully implement the Panchayat and Nagarpalika in the tribal areas, it is not going to work, because the tribal areas rules, regulation, culture, tradition, historical background is very, very different. So if central government will basically force those tribal areas to implement the Panchayat and Nagarpalika rules of the central government of 1992, it can actually create a huge problem. Let me give you an example of early 1960s and 70s. When industrialization was there in the second five-year plan of 1956 to 1961, industrialization was basically the main goal. Okay. Now, when this particular industrialization was there in 1960s and 70s, so the industrialists or capitalists were basically given the authority and privilege to enter into the forest area forcefully, and they basically destroyed the trees, destroyed the jungles, and they also destroyed the huts and areas of tribals, and they basically established the industries there, and exploitation of tribal was going on there. Every type of exploitation, economic exploitation, financial exploitation, social, physical, sexual exploitation, every kind of exploitation was going on. And what was the result which actually came out in front of us? And that was Naxalism. So the mistake which was done by the government in the decade of 1960s and 70s, government did not want to repeat that particular mistake in the year 1992. Okay, that's why government introduced PESA Act in 1996. Okay, and then when government basically decided that let us implement the Panchayat and Nagarpalika in those areas first where the tribal population is not there in 1992. Government particularly did that. Then in 1996, the government said that now let us implement Panchayat and Nagarpalika in the year 1996 under the PESA Act according to the tribals only. Like, for example, if I am the central government and you are basically the tribal population, so I am asking you, I am asking the tribal population of fifth and sixth schedule area that, sir, we want to implement Panchayat and Nagarpalika in your areas. Okay. So what do you want us to do? How you basically want us to implement? So in this particular Panchayat Extension Schedule Area Act, that is the PESA Act 1996, the Panchayat and municipalities were implemented here, but not according to the central government, according to the Gram Sabhas of tribal areas. That means in that particular fifth and sixth schedule area of 1996, Gram Sabhas were basically given more power. Gram Sabhas were given more power then the state government, and then the central government itself. So in this particular question, the same question is being asked, that when the PESA Act 1996 was implemented, okay, what kind of power was basically given to the Gram Sabha? This is the scenario. Okay, fair enough. So let us go with the statements now. Let us go to the statements now. So what was the power under PESA Act of Gram Sabha? Now the statement number one is Gram Sabha has the power to prevent alienations, alienation of land in the scheduled area. Gram Sabha has the ownership of minor forest to produce, and recommendation of Gram Sabha is required for a granting, prospecting license or mining lease for any minerals in the scheduled area. So here basically the correct option is solution number B. That is statement number 1 and 2. This says that Gram Sabha can basically make the rules for their land. That means if state government wants to basically have the land or capture the land of tribal areas, state government has to take the permission from the Gram Sabha. And number two, Gram Sabha has the ownership of minor forest to produce, that is MFP. If a state government want to basically use the minor forest to produce, it will not be allowed for the state government until and unless Gram Sabha will basically allow them. Or we can directly say that the primary authority or the primary possession or initial possession on the minor forest to produce of the forest areas is there with the Gram Sabha of that particular tribal area. Fair enough. Now let us look at the explanation. The explanation is there in detail. So please understand this in a very deep manner. You can basically note it down, all the notes here, because this is going to be very, very important for you also, guys. Okay. Let us go for the explanation now. Okay. So the provision of part 9 of constitution related to the panchayat are not applicable to the 5th schedule area. It is there in the 6th schedule area. Now, what are the legal powers under the PESA Act? Let us understand. Number one is the safeguard and preserve the tradition and custom of the people, their cultural identity, community resources, and customary mode of dispute resolution. That means all the type of traditions, culture, art, etc., faith, belief, whatever the tribal people are having under the 6th schedule area, that will be basically restored and protected by the state government. Besides that, approve plans, programs, and projects for the social and economic development. Before such plans, programs, and projects are taken up for implementation by the panchayat at the village level. That means each and every project in that particular tribal area of that particular village related to the social development, economic development, etc., all of these projects will be implemented at the panchayat level, either by the panchayat only or by the state government only, but with that particular permission of Gram Sabha. Besides that, identification or selection of person as the beneficiary under the poverty alleviation and other programs. Now, poverty alleviation, poverty, to remove the poverty, there are many schemes and policy which are basically run and executed by the state government. So those particular schemes will be basically there for the tribal area also under the PESA Act. But who will be the beneficiary? Which persons will be there who will be basically beneficiary for them? That will also be decided by whom? That will also be decided by the Panchayat and Nagarpalika only. Okay. So let us go with the next now. Okay. Now, certification of utilization of funds by the panchayat for the plans, program, and projects for identification or selection of persons as beneficiaries under the poverty alleviation program. We have basically seen that. Next is right to be consulted before making acquisition of the land of the schedule area for development projects and before resettling or rehabilitation person affected by such projects in the schedule area. Now, this is a kind of a statement which was there in the question also. We just studied that the land resources will be there under the panchayat of that particular tribal area. So if state government want to acquire the land, it is must that the permission of the panchayat and nagarpalika must be there. Fair enough. Now, if the land is acquired by the state government and if there was any person who was living or residing on that land, so rehabilitation and resettlement will also be done by the state government on that particular place where the panchayat of that tribal area will demand. So here we can see that in the PESA Act of 6th schedule, Gram Sabha is actually having the power more than the state government. Like, for example, let me just give you a thing in a very simpler manner, that if the chief minister is saying something and the Gram Sabha of the tribal area of PESA Act is saying something, so the Gram Sabha saying will be basically taken as the priority level, not the saying of the chief minister. This such a huge power is there with the Gram Sabha when it comes under the PESA Act. Okay. And this is all rest of the explanation. You can basically read it out. No problem with this. Okay. Now let us come to the one more question, which was basically asked in the year 2011. Okay. Now this question was there asked in 2011. It was asked that the Constitution, that is 73rd Constitution Amendment Act 1992, which aims at promoting the Panchayati Raj institution in the country, provides for which of the following? Okay. Now, this 73rd Constitution Amendment is obviously there for the panchayat only, but according to this particular 73rd Constitution Amendment, not just 73rd and 74th Constitution Amendment, not just the panchayat and nagarpalika, but the rest of many bodies and organization was also established. Like, for example, State Election Commission was established, or State Finance Commission was established. Many different things were established here. So correct thing is here is option number C, that is number 2 and number 3. This State Election Commission and this State Finance Commission. Now, you please need to understand the difference between the State Election Commission and the Central Election Commission, State Finance Commission and Central Finance Commission. Now, let us basically talk about the Central and State Election Commission. Now, let us basically understand this here. Okay. Now, the Central Election Commission, this Central Election Commission comes under article number 324. And when we talk about the State Election Commission, this comes under article number 243K. This Central Election Commission holds the election, okay, holds the election of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, Vidhan Sabha, Vidhan Parishad, which is also known as Legislative Council, President of India, and Vice President of India. But when we come to the explanation of State Election Commission, that is under article number 243K, it actually conducts the election of Panchayat and Nagarpalika. Of Panchayat and Nagarpalika. This is the scenario here. Now, when we come with the second difference of Central Finance Commission and State Finance Commission, Central Finance Commission and State Finance Commission. So this Central Finance Commission comes under article number 280, article number 280, and State Finance Commission comes under article number 243I. Very simple. Now, what this Central Finance Commission does, Central Finance Commission distributes the tax between central government and state government. And this State Finance Commission distributes the tax between state government and local self-government. Local self-government, that means panchayat and nagarpalika. Panchayat and nagarpalika. It is as simple as that. So now the question was that this particular State Election Commission and this State Finance Commission was implemented under which constitution amendment? That is the 73rd Constitution Amendment, 1992. Is this fair enough? Everyone all clear with this? Done. So this is basically that's why the correct option is this. Now let us basically look at the explanation of this particular also. Now, the 73rd Constitution Amendment 1992 established the panchayat, no problem with that. It added part 9 of the Constitution of India, okay. And the articles of panchayat are from article number 243 to article number 243 clause O. That means article 243, 243A, 243B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O. And from article number 243P, what you will see? The articles of Nagarpalika or municipality. Now do remember this particular point here, that whenever we talk about the 73rd Constitution Amendment, it also added one more schedule. That is the 11th schedule. 11th schedule is under 11th schedule, the powers of panchayat are given. That means on which subjects panchayat can basically make the laws. And if you go for the 74th Constitution Amendment, 12th schedule was inserted in the constitution. Under 12th schedule, those subjects are there in which the municipality or nagarpalika has the power to make the laws. This is basically the complete scenario here, everyone. Okay. Now let us go for the rest of the explanation also. Now, the 11th schedule which we were talking about, in which all the subjects are there on which the panchayat can make the laws or can take decisions. There are 29 items in 11th schedule. Please do remember this. In 11th schedule, there are 29 items or 29 subjects through which the panchayat can make the laws. And under this 12th schedule, how many subjects are there? 18 subjects are there. 18 subjects are there through which the what we say nagarpalika or municipality has the power to make the laws. Now you basically see one more thing here. Article number 243K, which I basically told you that the State Election Commission. Okay, so this is basically the explanation here. State Election Commission is there under article number 243K. Now you basically see article number 243I also here. So you can see article number 243I here. That is the State Finance Commission. Now the Central Finance Commission is basically constituted by the President of India, and the State Finance Commission is basically constituted by the Governor of India with the same tenure of 5 years. So no problem with this. Okay. This is the thing here. Okay. Now let us go to the next question that was basically being asked in the year 2010. The question was, which one of the following authorities can make the recommendation to the governor of a state as to the principle of determining the taxes and the duties which may be appropriated by the panchayat in the particular state? The same explanation which I just gave you here. I just told you that the Central Finance Commission's main duty is to distribute the taxes between the central and the state government, and the State Finance Commission will be having the duty to distribute the taxes between the state government and the Panchayat and Nagar Palika here. So here you can basically see that State Finance Commission, State Finance Commission is there, who will basically distribute the taxes between the state government and local self government. Or State Finance Commission also gives the advice to the governor that which municipality needs how much of fund, which panchayat needs how much of fund. This is basically the scenario here. Now you can basically also read a bit explanation of article number 243I here, guys. Okay, the same explanation will be there. You can just read it out once. I'll be just reading out once for you. Okay, because there should not be repetitive of the content here. So Article 243I, governor will be doing each and everything on the advice of the State Finance Commission, and here the State Finance Commission shall make the following recommendation to the governor: the distribution of the taxes between the states and the panchayat, net proceeds of the taxes, duties, tolls, etc., etc. All the things are basically covered under the power of State Finance Commission. Okay, now there is very easy question which was basically asked in the year 2009 only. You can basically see this question is very, very easy. You can just use your common sense and you can answer this particular question. This question was basically asked in the year 2009, that if a panchayat is dissolved, obviously before 5 years or after 5 years also, the elections will be held within how many months? Obviously it will be held within 6 months. See, it is not just the case of panchayat, it is also the case of municipality also. If the panchayat is dissolved, if the municipality is dissolved, if the Lok Sabha is dissolved, if the Vidhan Sabha is dissolved, the elections are basically held within 6 months. So this is very, very common thing here. Okay. So either the panchayat is dissolved after 5 years completion of the term, the elections will be held after 6 months, within 6 months. And if the panchayat is basically dissolved before 5 years also, even then the elections will be basically held within 6 months. So this is basically our today's session in which we discussed the previous year question paper of local government. We have basically covered three different topics: union, executive and parliament, constitution amendment bills and questions related to it. And the third one was a local self government, guys. Okay, I hope you guys are enjoying the session. Please make the notes of these content and PDF which is basically given to you. If you need this PDF in your with you, so you just need to contact the official number of IAS Origin, and the mentors and expert faculties will be basically helping you for the prelims session as well. Thank you so much. I hope to see you soon in the next session. And if you need more lectures like this, and if you want to basically join the IAS Origin batches, we basically conduct free workshop for IAS Origin each and every Sunday. You can basically contact the IAS Origin official number, can be there in the session, can enjoy the free mentorship program. And later on, if you think that IAS Origin will be helping you to make your UPSC civil services journey easier, so please do join us. That will be beneficial for you. Thank you so much for this session. Thank you, everyone. Yes, ma'am.